Welcome to my kitchen table. I'm Rachel, and tonight we are using leftovers to make our dinner. We're gonna do fajitas. The other day I made roast beef, and I have some leftover because we don't eat the whole thing. I mean, we're three people, well, two people who eat it, and one person who says no. That would be Connor. And so we have leftovers. So one of the things I like to do with my leftovers is turn them into something completely different. And tonight I'm going to turn a roast into fajitas. So how you do that is you basically just take your roast, and I always cook my medium rare. So if you guys cook it any longer than that, your cook times will vary. But I took my crock pot and I put the remaining roast in the crock pot for about 4 hours. And I put it on low, of course. Seasoned it with some cayenne pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, chili powder, and oregano. And I let that cook, like I said, for 4 hours until the meat was tender but would break apart pretty easily. So you do that, and then I set it aside for tonight's dinner. So in here I have about 2 pounds of roast beef. And we're going to put that into our cast iron skillet with our vegetables and make dinner. I just finished cutting up the red pepper, and now I'm going to cut up the onion. So get prepared to see me cry because I'm totally going to do it. I am using a yellow onion. You can use any onion you want. I prefer either yellow or white onions in this recipe. You know, guys, to be quite honest with you, fajitas are pretty simple. You season the meat and the, that did not want to come out of that root. You season the meat and the vegetables with Mexican flavors, and you cook them on a high temperature. It is literally that simple. I will tell you one thing about onions. I cut this in half. If you cut the onion, I guess it would be crossways, it would be a hotter onion. If you cut them lengthwise, it'll be milder in flavor. So I'm going to cut them lengthwise because I also want them a little bit longer. Oops, and I need to cut off the root. So we do not need to eat the root. So you can make them as thin or thick as you like, but remember that the thickness determines the cook time. And I did not take off this outer layer, which I really need to do, because this outer layer of your onion, and by outer layer I don't mean the shell or the peel, or the skin rather, call it what you want. I'm going to call it shell, peel, skin. But it's this little thin layer on that first layer of onion, and you just want to remove it because it's not going to cook. And I'm just going to take that piece and just peel it right off, and you're going to think, oh my gosh, that's a whole layer of onion. Well, it kind of is, but it's also a nasty layer you don't want to eat because it doesn't cook. So you're really not missing out on anything, so don't worry about it. However, these thicker pieces, you can just go ahead and pull those aside and cut those into thin strips, because sometimes those inner layers aren't going to cut right along with the rest of it. That is a piece of onion. All right. So at this point, I'm just finishing up my onion. And then I'm going to have to shred cheese. You guys don't have to shred the cheese on your own if you don't want to, but I'm going to tell you a little story about cheese. All right, my vegetables are done. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story about cheese. So when you buy your shredded cheese in the store, that cheese has a wax on it, and that cheese is very or that wax rather, not the cheese, but the wax is hard to digest. So if you shred your own cheese, well, you don't have to make your cheese. What I mean is, if you buy a block of cheese and you shred it yourself, you don't get that wax layer. And so the cheese is a lot easier to digest. Okay, I moved all the vegetables out of my way. I'm gonna set them down over here and just shred my cheese. And then I've got my cast iron skillet heating up in a 400-degree oven at this moment. And very soon we will get dinner on the table. This won't take long, so that's the nice thing. The thing that takes the longest is the vegetables. Your meat is already cooked, so you have that going for you. And on a weeknight, any help is so helpful. Do you know what I mean? Okay, that should be plenty of cheese for 2 people. If it's not, we might have a problem. Okay, my pan is on medium high on the burner, and I added a tablespoon of canola oil. So I'm just letting that kind of heat up in addition to the pan already being heated, because that oil was not already hot when it hit the pan, even though the pan's hot. So I just need to give it a couple of seconds to kind of heat up alongside that pan, and then we're going to add the vegetables. And I do both at the same time because they take about the same amount of time to cook. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add them now. I'm just going to season with salt. Add pepper, and you're going to season the salt and pepper to taste. You're not going to, there's no like set amount that I use. I just see what I like. Most people use about a teaspoon, and depending on how much you have in there will also depend on that amount as well. And with the heat up this high, and also with using a cast iron skillet, please make sure to frequently stir your vegetables so that they don't burn. You want to get a caramelization on them, like a browning, but you don't want them to burn by any means. Okay, in this pot I have a can of refried beans. Yeah, we use canned refried beans around here. I do have the ability to make them, but if you've ever made refried beans, you know it's a process. You have to boil the beans in all of the seasonings for like a couple of hours. You drain it off, and then you mash them up and fry them in lard or oil, whatever you want to do. Lard is so much better. I know, cholesterol, but that's okay. No one ever said it was healthy. They just said it was good. And it is. It's very good. Also, it's a weeknight, and I need to get dinner going, get it done, because I've got other things I have to do tonight. So we're just going to use a can, and it'll be fine. The onions are already starting to brown a little bit. We're getting some nice color. And I can tell that the red peppers are getting a little bit more tender as well. this is what you want to make sure that you keep moving it, because this is why you want to make sure that you keep moving it, because they cook pretty quickly. The best way to heat up your tortillas is to put them in foil and put them in the oven at 350 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm just going to close these up. And you guys make sure that the reflective side of the foil is facing upward, because what that does is it reflects heat away, thereby preventing burn, but yet allowing enough heat to circumvent the food to cook it how you want it cooked. And we're basically just making us a little empapillote, if you will. Or empapillote, I guess, technically. Okay, so those are done. And when you're ready to put them in, you just put them in. Good, my oven's actually ready, so I'll just throw them in and let them cook for about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes until they're nice and warm. Because I'm just looking for them to be warm. If you cook them any longer than that, they'll get crunchy, and you don't really want that. These are looking really, really nice. I like how they're just silky and smooth and delicious. They look like I just want to eat them, you know? I just want to eat them. But they're smooth and they're silky looking, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. They're browning nicely, but they're not burning because I continue to turn them and keep moving them along with that heat, so that they are feeling the heat, but they're not burning up in that heat. So this is where we want the vegetables at. They have a nice char, but they are not burning. And I am getting ready to add the beef. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add all the beef right into the pot or the skillet. And I just want to work it in nicely. Okay. So the meat to vegetable ratio is kind of a lot, which is okay. Normally I would probably do 2 to this, 2 each onion to 2 each bell pepper to 2 pounds of meat. I did not realize earlier that it was about 2 pounds of meat, so I just kind of went with what I had and said, you know what, it'll be fine. So we have that going. I'm going to let this meat heat up a little bit, because that's all it needs to do is just kind of heat up in the pan since it's already been cooked twice. And then I'm going to add the seasonings to it and let that kind of cook in for about a minute or 2. Like I said earlier, I went ahead and seasoned the meat when I put it in the crock pot, but I like to also season the meat and the vegetables together right at the end of cook time, so that it just enhances those flavors a little bit more. We're not going to add a lot, we're just going to add a little bit. But we're also going to add a little bit of water to them and kind of make almost like a sauce. Name of sauces, you know. So I'm going to make a sauce with those. And this is heating up nicely. I have not changed the temperature of my pan. It is still at medium high. And I'm throwing food all over the place, so that's fun. That's how I roll. Okay. Yeah. So that's just at the warm stage right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add my seasonings. And in here I have about a teaspoon of cumin, a half a teaspoon of oregano, about a quarter of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. I have about a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of chili powder. I also have about a half of a teaspoon of tahini, and that's just to give it that citrus flavor. So I am just going to add all of those in and just kind of move them around and kind of put them here and there. Then I'm going to work them in a little bit. Okay. And last but not least, I'm going to add about a third of a cup of water right in the pan. And I can see those seasonings already working into that water. All right. And now you can kind of tell that there's like a different color going on here from the original color of the beef when it went in. It's a little bit more orange. Let me show you. No, I guess not orange isn't the right word for it, but so this is what it looks like with the seasonings. And let me see if I can, and here, this is what it looks like. Oops. Pre-seasoning. Nope. So you've got, this is the pre-seasoned meat, and this is the, oops, and this is the seasoned meat. I don't know how well you can tell the difference with this light, but there you have it. Okay. So these are hot enough. I'm going to stir. Yeah, it's fine. I'm going to stir the refried beans one more time because those are done. And this is what canned refried beans can look like if you cook it right and don't burn it. Okay. That is done. I'm going to take out the tortillas from the oven. Yeah, and they're nice and hot, so they are good to go. I'm going to turn off my burner and my oven. And sometimes I say it out loud because, well, we all forget, don't we? Some of us do anyway. I do. All right. And it's almost time to plate. Okay, now I'm just opening the tortillas in the foil so we can start plating because we are all very hungry. We have nice warm tortillas. They may stick together a little bit, but that's all right. So I'm going to lay out 2 on a plate. Give this one final stir. Okay. Gonna take a little bit of the mixture and put it right in the middle and make the biggest mess you can because that's exactly what I'm doing. Get onions. Get the red bell peppers and the meat. I like to load mine up too, you guys. I don't know about you, but I do not skimp. Like I can't do it. I'm like too hungry for that. Okay, and then we're just gonna add a little bit of lettuce, and you see my potatoes. Those are for later. Lettuce, cilantro. And last but not least, cheese. I usually put the cheese on after. I normally put the cheese on when I do the filling, but today I forgot. I'm gonna be honest here, I just forgot a little bit. And these are your fajitas. Now, of course, you want to close them up. My crazy self loves loaded fajitas. And then you just put whatever hot. And if you made a salsa, put the salsa on it. It'd be perfect. You can squeeze a little lime on there or lemon juice, whichever you prefer. But these are my fajitas. And I just want to give mine a quick taste real quick because I just need to know how it tastes before we sit down. That kick. That's good. It's good. It's really good, really flavorful. I used a different kind of lettuce today. And to be honest, it helped. It actually made a crunch, give it a crunch, and a different flavor than I'm used to, like iceberg lettuce or cabbage. The seasonings were perfect. They weren't too much, too little. It was just the right amount of seasonings for already seasoned meat. Of course, we still have to season our vegetables. Salt was there, pepper was there. The beans, I know, are going to be awesome because they came out of a can and they're always the same. So those were great, I'm sure. They've been great every other time. But these, the cheese and the tortilla being nice and warm, the beef, the vegetables, the cilantro, everything was so good in there. You guys have to try these. Very simple, quick recipe, and dinner's on the table. For a weeknight meal, you cannot go wrong.